The vision of the future of the automobile, the dawn of the jet age, and the intensity of the space race led American automakers into an era of bold imagination and radical experimentation. The 1950s and 60s were decades of transformation, not only in technology, but also in cultural ambition. Cars were no longer just a means of transportation. They became ongoing representations of what the future might look like. In today's video, we'll explore 10 American concept cars that didn't just break the mold, they redefined it. These machines were more than just prototypes. They were dreams on wheels. So if you're passionate about automotive history, space-age design, and raw mechanical innovation, hit the subscribe button and let's dive into a journey through time and imagination. Starting our list at number 10 is a vehicle that set the tone for the entire decade, the 1951 GM LeSabre. This wasn't just a concept car, it was a statement of intent. Appearing at the very beginning of the 1950s, the LeSabre captured the spirit of the jet age better than almost any other car before or since. Designed by the legendary Harley Earl, it was originally conceived as his personal car, but quickly became a symbol of futuristic automotive design. Even its name was inspired by the F-86 Sabre jet fighter, which was among the most advanced military aircraft of its day. Visually, the LeSabre looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. With its wide, flowing lines, the bodywork mimicked the aerodynamic curves of fighter jets. The front grille featured a dramatic air intake reminiscent of jet turbines, while the rear fins gave a sense of movement even when the car was parked. This was more than an aesthetic touch. It was an attempt to visually integrate aviation into the automotive form, a theme that would dominate the next 2 decades. What made the LeSabre especially remarkable, however, was the fact that it wasn't just futuristic on the outside. Underneath its sleek exterior was a highly advanced powertrain for the time. It housed a 3.5-liter V8 engine capable of producing an impressive 335 horsepower and 381 pound-feet of torque. These figures may seem modest today, but in the early 1950s, this level of performance was groundbreaking, especially considering the car's gigantic dimensions. It wasn't just a design study, it was a fully functional and drivable car with real-world performance credentials. The LeSabre also featured the first iterations of technologies that wouldn't become commonplace for decades, including rain-sensing windscreen wipers and an onboard lift system. In many ways, this car was a preview of the luxury and technology features that are now standard on modern vehicles. More than a showpiece, the LeSabre demonstrated the extent to which GM was willing to push the boundaries of what a car could be, serving as a mobile laboratory that predicted the automotive future. Moving on to number 9, we find another cornerstone of American automotive history, the 1953 Chevrolet Corvette EX-52. When it comes to influential American sports cars, the Corvette is always at the top of the list. And it all started with this prototype. Known internally as the EX-52, this vehicle was Chevrolet's bold attempt to challenge European dominance in the sports car segment. It debuted at GM's Motorama Auto Show in 1953, capturing the public's imagination with its sleek lines, low profile, and sophisticated styling. While many American cars of the time were getting bigger and heavier, the EX-52 was light, elegant, and inspired by pre-war European design, as well as elements from the 1930s and 40s. It featured a long hood, curved fenders, and a cockpit-like seating position that suggested speed even when stationary. The public reaction was overwhelming, prompting GM to rush production, with the final production model of the Corvette remaining remarkably faithful to the original concept. Under the hood, the EX-52 was equipped with a 235 cubic inch inline 6-cylinder engine. Initially dubbed the Cougar, the engine's name was later changed to Corvette, in line with the new model. It produced 150 horsepower and 223 pound-feet of torque, respectable figures for a lightweight car of the time. But performance wasn't the only focus. The car symbolized a shift in American automotive culture, signaling that the U.S. could build a sleek, sporty vehicle to rival anything coming from Europe. The success of the Corvette EX-52 didn't just influence Chevrolet, it changed the trajectory of the entire American automotive industry. it marked the beginning of a new philosophy that prioritized performance and style in equal measure. Without the EX-52, there might never have been a Corvette Stingray, a ZR1, or even today's mid-engined C8. This concept wasn't just a show car, it was the catalyst for an American icon. Continuing our journey through the most daring concept cars of the 1950s and 1960s, we come to number 8 with a vehicle that looked like it came straight out of a futuristic movie, the 1954 Lincoln Futura. If the 1950s were marked by excess, creativity, and an unwavering belief in technological progress, the Futura is a perfect portrait of that spirit. Created by Lincoln as a showcase for the possibilities of automotive design, this car took space aesthetics to new heights. What makes the Futura so unique is its unusual origin. Designer Bill Schmidt was inspired after diving with sharks. That's right, sea creatures influenced the car's aggressive, bold lines. The rear fins are one of the most striking elements of the design, with hard, dramatic angles that evoke both the fins of a shark and the tails of supersonic jets. The bodywork seemed to be in constant motion, even standing still, with curves and surfaces that captured light like a futuristic spaceship. Perhaps the most memorable aspect of the Lincoln Futura is its glass roof. Instead of a conventional roof, it featured a double dome in the shape of a panoramic bubble, entirely made of glass. This created a feeling of transparency and lightness, as well as offering occupants an unobstructed 360-degree view. It was like driving a space capsule in car form, and the feeling of modernity was reinforced by a push-button transmission, a feature that would only become common decades later. Under the hood, the Futura was just as impressive. It was equipped with a 368 cubic-inch V8 engine, capable of generating 300 horsepower and an impressive 402 pound-feet of torque. This meant that the car wasn't just a showpiece. It had the performance to go with its audacious looks. And as if all that wasn't enough, the Lincoln Futura still earned a place in pop culture. Years after its debut, it was modified and painted black to become the famous Batmobile from the 1966 Batman TV series. This transformation immortalized the car, ensuring that its futuristic legacy would live on for generations. Moving on to number 7 on the list, we have the 1954 Ford LaTosca, another spectacular example of how the jet age influenced automotive design. While many of the concepts of the time shared similar traits, the LaTosca managed to stand out by embracing bold geometric shapes and ideas that challenged the limits of the imagination. The Ford LaTosca wasn't just a big car, it was an ambitious display of industrial creativity. Triangular shapes predominated in its design, from the sloping rear fins to the front grille sculpted like the air intake of a jet fighter. Even the reversing lights were designed to resemble aircraft exhaust pipes, further strengthening the visual connection with military aviation. But what really made the LaTosca different was its control system. This car wasn't driven by a driver sitting behind the wheel, but by remote control. That's right. It was operated remotely, like a terrestrial drone avant la lettre. Although this idea seemed excessively futuristic at the time, it anticipated technologies that are now part of our daily lives, with autonomous vehicles and assisted driving systems. Of course, the LaTosca was never intended to hit the streets. It was a showcase of possibilities, a way of showing the public and the competition what Ford envisioned for the future of mobility. More than a car, it was an idea on wheels. At number 6 on the list is the sleek and compact 1956 Oldsmobile Golden Rocket. Unlike many of the huge, exaggerated vehicles of the decade, the Golden Rocket was based on a leaner, more aerodynamic philosophy. Its name said it all. It was an attempt to combine the concepts of speed, technology, and space aesthetics in a single experimental car. The Golden Rocket was designed to look like a silver bullet slicing through the air. The rear of the car featured 2 chrome domes at the ends of the bumper, reminiscent of rocket nozzles, while the front sported a prominent vertical triangular grille, evoking the tip of a missile. And of course, the unmistakable shark fin rear fins were present, reinforcing the aviation-inspired visual language. Despite its more restrained size, the Golden Rocket didn't disappoint in terms of performance. Equipped with a 324 cubic inch V8 engine, it delivered 275 horsepower, a considerable figure for a car with aerodynamic pretensions. It was a clear example that innovation didn't have to be accompanied by gigantism. The Golden Rocket was more than just beautiful. It symbolized Oldsmobile's desire to position itself as an innovative brand, capable of offering elegance and performance in a futuristic package. Although it never made it to the assembly lines, its impact is still felt today in the aggressive lines and dynamic curves that inspired designers for decades to come. At number 5 on our list, we find one of the boldest designs in General Motors history, the 1956 GM Firebird II. While many concept cars of the time looked like spaceships from the outside, the Firebird II was one of the few that tried to be a real one on the inside, too. The proposal was clear: to create a car of the future, aimed at the family, but equipped with technologies that didn't even exist in the production cars of the time. The result was something that looked like it had come straight out of an intergalactic exhibition. Unlike its predecessor, the Firebird Y, which looked very much like a fighter plane with wheels, the Firebird II had a more practical proposal. It still had a radical aerodynamic design, but with a touch of familiar sophistication. The smooth lines of the body, the partially fairing wheels, and the use of shiny metals reinforced its futuristic aesthetic. But there was still room for comfort and functionality. What really put the Firebird II ahead of its time was what lay beneath its titanium shell. Equipped with a gas turbine engine, it could run on different types of fuel, from gasoline to kerosene. The idea was to create a versatile and efficient platform, something extremely ambitious by the standards of the time. But GM didn't stop there. The Firebird II also featured an automated steering system, something almost inconceivable in the 50s. This system used electronic sensors to pick up signals from a wire embedded in the road, allowing the car to drive itself. Inside the cabin, the experience was equally revolutionary. A television monitor built into the dashboard displayed information about routes, weather, and road conditions as if it were a primitive digital assistant. The idea was that the driver could relax while the car took over. The Firebird II anticipated concepts that are now part of the industry's vocabulary, such as autonomous cars, connectivity, and driving assistance systems. It was a vehicle that didn't just hint at the future, it literally tried to live in it. GM's message was clear: if we can imagine it, we can build it. The Firebird II was one of the company's biggest bets to show that the car of the future wasn't just about looks, but also about intelligence, safety, and innovation. And if you thought the Firebird II was radical, wait until you meet number 4 on our list, the 1957 Ford Nucleon. If the name sounds like something out of a nuclear laboratory, that's exactly the point. The Ford Nucleon was perhaps the most ambitious and potentially dangerous of all the 50s concepts. The idea? A nuclear-powered car. Yes, you heard right. In theory, the Nucleon would be equipped with a small nuclear reactor that would power the car for up to 5,000 miles without the need to refuel. The fuel? Radioactive elements. It was an extreme leap towards energy independence, motivated by the atomic optimism of the time, when nuclear energy was seen not only as the future of electricity, but also of mobility. The Nucleon's design reflected this bold proposal. With proportions never seen before, the car measured 16.7 feet long, 6.5 feet wide, and just 3.5 feet high. Figures that placed it below the Ford GT in height and almost the size of a McLaren Speedtail in length. The cabin was positioned far forward, almost over the front axle, while the rear housed the supposed nuclear capsule. This created a highly asymmetrical and impressive profile, reinforcing its conceptual nature. Although it was never built on a functional scale, the Nucleon represented the pinnacle of technological speculation. It was less a car and more a metaphor for the human power to master energy and shape the future in its own image. Of course, over time, the risks of radiation and logistical challenges made the project impossible to realize. But as a symbol of ambition and futuristic vision, the Nucleon remains unrivaled. These two cars, the Firebird II and the Nucleon, show how the 1950s were more than an era of tails and chrome. They were years when engineers and designers looked to the skies, to laboratories, and even to nuclear power stations in search of the next great revolution on four wheels. Coming to the top three of our list, we enter even more experimental territory, where automotive design borders on science fiction. At number 3 is the 1961 Chrysler TurboFlite, a concept car that seems to have been designed to explore not only the future of mobility, but the future of the human imagination itself. Launched in the early 1960s, the TurboFlite was a bold effort by Chrysler to show that the company wasn't just following the industry's futuristic trend, it was helping to shape it. The car stood out for its absolutely unique design, smooth aerodynamic lines, clean shapes, and a look that was more reminiscent of a space capsule than a traditional automobile. One of the most striking visual elements was the glass bubble over the cabin, a transparent cover that lifted automatically when the door handle was pressed, revealing an equally futuristic interior. This dome not only reinforced the space aesthetic, but also offered an immersive, panoramic experience for the driver and passenger. It was like piloting a spaceship. The front of the car followed a minimalist philosophy. There were few visual elements, all with the aim of maximizing aerodynamics. In contrast, the rear was bold and distinctive, with vertical fins that joined in the center to form a raised wing. This detail wasn't just aesthetic. The fins helped direct airflow and improve the car's stability at high speed, something that, in theory, boosted performance. But what really put the TurboFlite in a separate category was its engine, a gas turbine engine. Chrysler had already been investing in turbine technology since the 1950s, but the TurboFlite symbolized the consolidation of this ambition. Unlike conventional engines, turbines could run on multiple types of fuel, required fewer moving parts, and promised greater longevity. In practice, however, there were challenges such as high fuel consumption and production costs, obstacles that prevented this technology from becoming viable in production cars at the time. The TurboFlite, therefore, was not just an aesthetic showcase. It symbolized the convergence of aerodynamics, technological innovation, and a desire to break with the past. Its legacy would influence later designs, consolidating Chrysler's role as one of the boldest brands in experimental design. And speaking of boldness, number 2 on the list takes this idea even further. Introducing the 1963 Chrysler Turbine Car, a project that not only dreamed of the future, but actually put hundreds of people inside it. That's because, unlike most concept cars, the Chrysler Turbine Car was produced in a limited series and delivered to real drivers for testing in everyday situations. With an elegant and sophisticated design, the turbine car combined the futurism of the turbine with a body that still preserved classic elements from the 60s. Its profile was clean, with continuous lines linking the front to the rear, reinforcing the fluidity of the design. One of the most striking details was the rear with turbine-shaped lanterns, a direct visual reference to its engine. The engine was once again a gas turbine, similar to the one used in the TurboFlite, but now more developed and optimized for everyday use. It was able to run on different fuels, from diesel to kerosene and even vegetable oil. The promise was of an extremely smooth ride, with linear acceleration and almost silent operation. To put this dream to the test, Chrysler produced 55 units of the car, with 50 of them destined for the public, and launched a test program where ordinary people could drive the turbine car for weeks. At the end of the program, the cars were returned to the automaker, and almost all of them were destroyed, except for a few units kept for display in museums. The project revealed positive points, such as the mechanical simplicity and durability of the turbine. However, it also revealed practical problems, such as high fuel consumption, slow response at low revs, and high maintenance costs. Even so, the Chrysler Turbine Car went down in history as one of the most serious and advanced attempts to apply aerospace technology to urban mobility. If the TurboFlite represented the theoretical dream, the Turbine Car was the concrete attempt to make it a reality. Together, these two Chrysler creations helped consolidate the image of the 1960s as the pinnacle of automotive experimentation in the United States, an era in which imagining the impossible was part of the creative process. We've finally reached the top of our list. Number one among the most futuristic concept cars of the 1950s and 60s is a true icon of technological ambition and boundless imagination, the 1963 Ford Seattle-ite XXI. The name already evokes an air of science fiction, and rightly so. This was by far one of the most daring, visionary, and fascinating projects ever presented to the public by an American car manufacturer. And nothing could be more symbolic than its debut at the 1962 New York World's Fair, an event designed to celebrate the future of humanity. Visually, the Seattle-ite XXI seemed to have come straight out of an Isaac Asimov novel. Its wheelbase was extraordinarily long, designed to accommodate an unusual structure: 4 front wheels and 2 rear wheels. That's right, the car had 4 wheels at the front, all steerable, offering unprecedented steering control for the time. This detail alone would make it a unique piece of automotive history. The shapes of the Seattle-ite blended the stylistic exaggeration of the previous decade with a touch of early 60s functionalism. At the rear, an inverted triangular-shaped bumper surrounded 4 large exhaust pipes that looked directly inspired by jet engines. It was as if Ford wanted to say, in no uncertain terms, "We're ready to take off." But it was in the interior and onboard systems that the Seattle-ite proposal really came to life. The car featured technologies that would take decades to become a reality, and some that haven't even arrived yet. Among them was the touch steering system, called fingertip steering. Instead of a traditional steering wheel, the driver would have full control of the vehicle via touch-sensitive levers, anticipating the digital controls we see today on touchscreens and multifunction panels. Another highlight was the trip planning computer, something unheard of in the 60s. The device allowed the driver to enter routes, monitor traffic, and adjust the route according to weather and road conditions, basically a primitive analog version of what we know today as GPS with artificial intelligence. The proposal was to turn the car into a real travel assistant, automating decisions and providing a smooth, safe, and intelligent driving experience. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect, and also the most utopian, of the Seattle-ite XXI was its propulsion system. Ford proposed that the vehicle be equipped with interchangeable fuel cell modules, allowing the driver to choose between different energy sources according to the needs of the trip. One of these modules would even be nuclear, following the line of thought initiated by the Ford Nucleon in 1957. The idea was to build a vehicle ecosystem that would adapt to the type of route, duration, and energy availability. Something that, even today, seems closer to science fiction than reality. It's important to remember that the Seattle-ite XXI was never built full-size and functional. It remained a scale model and a design proposal. However, the impact of its presentation was immense. Not only did it push the boundaries of what was considered possible, but it also inspired generations of engineers, designers, and enthusiasts of the future. What makes this car so special is precisely its radical commitment to imagination. Unlike other concepts that focused solely on aesthetics, the Seattle-ite was a holistic vision of what the future of mobility could be. Modular, clean, intelligent, customizable, and highly technological. It ended not only an era of experimentation, but also symbolized a collective dream that automotive technology could lead us to a better tomorrow, more efficient, more comfortable, and freer. Thus, the Ford Seattle-ite XXI remains to this day one of the highest marks of inventiveness in the American automotive industry. A reminder that when we let our imagination take the wheel, destiny can be more extraordinary than we could ever have predicted. If you enjoyed this journey through time with these cars that looked like they came out of a science fiction movie, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps to keep this content alive. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me.